All right, let's get right into it. We all know we're supposed to exercise, right? But if you're anything like me, a lot of the time it just feels, well, like a chore. It can feel really unnatural. Have you ever stopped to wonder why there's this massive gap between knowing something is good for us and actually, wanting to do it?
And that's really the heart of the matter, isn't it? We're all fighting this incredibly powerful, super deep-seated instinct to just conserve energy. Take it easy. But here's the most important thing to get. This isn't some personal failing. It's not a character flaw. It's actually a fundamental part of being human. So where on earth did this instinct come from?
Well, to understand why we struggle with the treadmill today, we can't look for answers in a modern gym. No, we have to look way, way back. The answer is literally millions of years old, buried deep in our evolutionary past, from a time when saving every single calorie wasn't lazy, it was the absolute key to survival.
And this brings us to this really fascinating field called evolutionary medicine. People like Harvard professor Daniel Lieberman are pioneering this work, and it's all about using our evolutionary story to figure out and solve today's health problems. It's basically the lens we're going to use to make sense of our modern bodies for the rest of this explainer.
So, what's so cool is that once you start looking at things through this evolutionary lens, a lot of our modern health rules start to look, well, a little flimsy, maybe more like marketing slogans than actual science. So, let's bust a few of the big ones. First up, you've heard this one. Sitting is the new smoking. Sounds terrifying, right? Well, Professor Lieberman's research shows that ancient hunter-gatherers actually sat about as much as we do. But here's the huge difference. They were getting up constantly, like every 10 or 15 minutes. We sit for what, 40 minutes, an hour without moving a muscle? So the real problem isn't the sitting itself, it's the uninterrupted sitting. Okay, what about the sacred 8 hours of sleep? Turns out, when scientists study populations that live without electricity, no phones, no TVs, no lights, they naturally sleep between 6 and 7 hours a night. And get this, large-scale studies in our own societies show that health outcomes are actually best for people who sleep around 7 hours, not 8. 7 seems to be the sweet spot. And, oh, this one's a classic, the 10,000 steps a day rule. You might think that number came from rigorous scientific study. Nope. It came from a Japanese marketing campaign in the 1960s to sell pedometers. It's not a bad goal, but the actual science shows that the major health benefits really start to plateau right around 7,500 to 8,000 steps. So, busting myths is fun, but there's a much more serious threat that our modern, inactive lifestyles create, especially as we get older. We kind of just assume that getting frail and weak is a normal part of aging, but evolution tells us a completely different story. And frankly, a much more urgent one. It's not about the clock, it's about the couch. The clinical term for this is sarcopenia. It literally comes from the Greek for poverty of the flesh. How stark is that? It's the age-related loss of muscle and strength. And this isn't just about how you look in the mirror. This is about your ability to live. It's about losing the power to do basic things like climb stairs, carry your groceries, or even just get up out of a chair. And here's the scary part. Sarcopenia starts this really dangerous, vicious cycle. It might start small, you just slow down a bit as you get older, but that leads to muscle loss, which then makes it physically harder to be active. And that inactivity, it causes even more muscle loss, and the cycle just spins faster and faster until you become frail. So, how in the world do we break the cycle? Professor Lieberman is incredibly clear about this. The number one most important weapon we have against sarcopenia is resistance training, lifting weights. And he even admits that the more his own research confirmed this, the more he started kicking himself for not taking it more seriously. That's how critical it is. All right, so we've seen how inactivity makes aging worse, but the flip side of this coin is even more amazing. Physical activity is so much more than just burning calories. It's a powerful form of medicine that our bodies actually evolved to depend on. It's like we have a pharmacy built right into our biology. Just look at this number for a second. 50%. For women, getting just 150 minutes of physical activity a week, that's barely 20 minutes a day, can lower their lifetime risk of breast cancer by up to 50%. I mean, let that sink in. That's not a small change. That's a massive, life-altering reduction in risk. So, how does it actually do all this? Well, when you exercise, you're basically flipping on all these deep repair and maintenance switches in your body. It helps control your blood sugar and insulin. It activates systems that keep your DNA from mutating. It even helps your brain cells clear out the metabolic gunk that can lead to diseases like Alzheimer's. It's a full-body tune-up.
But maybe the most important thing exercise does is fight chronic inflammation. A good way to think about this is like a slow, silent fire that's always burning inside your body, damaging your tissues, and contributing to pretty much every major disease we face. For millions of years, we were so active that our bodies never needed another way to control this fire. Exercise is the original and still the best tool we have to turn that dial way, way down. Okay, let's pull all of these threads together. We have these ancient bodies, right? Bodies that were built for near constant low-level activity. But we're living in a world that is designed to offer us comfort and convenience at every single turn. So how are we supposed to deal with this fundamental mismatch? Well, the very first step, according to Professor Lieberman, is compassion, not just for others, but for yourself too. When you see someone take the escalator instead of the stairs, the instinct might be to judge, but don't. They're not being lazy. Their brain is just doing exactly what it was programmed to do for millions of years: save energy. Realizing this is normal, not a moral failure, is absolutely key. And that really is the central battle, isn't it? Our modern world is an absolute masterpiece, engineered to satisfy our ancient craving for ease. Escalators, comfy shoes, food delivered to our door. We've practically eliminated the need for physical effort. And while that feels amazing in the moment, we now know it comes with a really serious long-term price tag for our health. So the real takeaway here is in some strict workout plan. It's a question. It's a question for you to take with you. Knowing that your body was built to move, and knowing that your ancient instincts will always, always pull you toward the couch in a world that's built for comfort, how will you choose to move? What are the small choices you can make to consciously, deliberately override that ancient programming?